My name is Leah Martin. I am the alcohol and drug worker out at the Eskedum Health Center in Alkali Lake.
And my name is Greg Janot, co-founder of Rise Society. I have a lot of lived experience with not dealing with my emotions and tools that create healthy relationships. What I've been learning in sobriety is that the quality of my relationships is really what determines the quality of my life. So what I've been learning is that I would rather die than actually tell people what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it, especially when there's affection involved. I get addicted to affection, and I don't want to speak the truth inside of me saying this is how I feel when blank, I need blank, because the fear is that if I express what I need, then the person is going to leave me. And deep down on a psychological or molecular level, the only real two fears I've discovered we have is that I'm going to die, be cast out, die alone, not reproduce, because we're designed to reproduce, or I'm going to die. Those are the two fears. This is going to kill me, or I'm going to die and I'm not going to procreate.
Right. So I think it's important to maybe just start from the beginning of those thoughts, and that essentially when we're experiencing our emotional world, our emotions are messengers that are sending signals to us from within our body based on internal and external cues about the way that we have learned and experienced the world. So what I'm hearing you describe is an emotional experience in the present moment that is also connected to a backlog of learnings about your emotional world that has helped you experience the world thus far, and that part of what you're looking to outgrow are past emotional responses. And that's a lot of what is the content of what is our addictive patterns, right? If we think about, the way we've used substances to escape or cover up emotional content because either of discomfort or not knowing how to process emotions in a healthy way, that's when we begin to build addictive patterns because of not being able to deal with the emotional world. And so this is kind of how it begins. So the key is really, I hear you describing, I know you're really big on emotional intelligence and reading a lot of self-taught things, but the beginning point for emotional intelligence is emotional regulation, just as a foundation. So emotional regulation is kind of a skill that we learn that then lends to a greater overall ability to have emotional intelligence. So the first step is starting to understand in your experience with this relational world, because we have a relationship to everything in the world, this table, this water I'm going to drink, you as a person, and this is the underlying meaning of all my relations, is that we do have a relationship to everything. And so within that relationship, what is causing us to go outside of our area of comfort? And so in the emotional regulation world, Dan Siegel created the idea of this window of tolerance that we all live in. And the window of tolerance is our nervous system state where we're living and we're happy and we're handling life and we can adjust and adapt and things are good. There are things that are going to push us outside of that emotional window of tolerance that then become the states where people are either hyperactivated, so that's an increased activation, your heart rate is up, you want to run away, it's that fight-flight state. And then we have hypoarousal, which is the kind of, collapsing into a state of freeze. So it's based on the fight-flight-freeze. And so when we're going outside of our window of tolerance is when we then use the tool of emotional regulation. And for people who grew up in, normal, neurotypical households, there's so many different variations. You were probably taught this innately. For people who grew up with less stability in their early childhood life, and other issues, familial issues related to trauma or intergenerational trauma, these things weren't probably presented in your world. And so then you may have maladaptively grown strategies that became coping skills, and thus we created like our addictions and the way we learn to regulate ourselves through our external world often. So for me, that's the key that I see, is that a lot of people coming out of addiction have yet to really learn healthy emotional regulation strategies that are going to help them in recovery to prevent relapse.
So what I've actually been learning is that a lot of people now are learning emotional intelligence. I've learned a lot about emotional intelligence over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's not until the last couple of weeks I've learned about emotional regulation.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like I was intellectualizing it in such a way that I could be like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to act in this situation.
Yeah.
And then I would suppress my emotions.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't learn how to speak my emotions as they came up. So then when I'm in a room with somebody, something's bothering me, depending on who that is, I might just sit there and be like, well, this isn't about me. I don't need to, and I would suppress all the emotions and I just push them down. And then, now I'm learning how much more freeing it is. Like I went through a lot of emotional pain this week. Like I had to take a whole day off work because I was going through so much.
It's true.
And then the next day, and I know that there were a lot of different thoughts going through my head. I wasn't thinking relapse because I was like, well, there's no, my life is designed in such a way now that relapse makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
Because then that destroys all my credibility, the work I've done, everything. So I've really worked hard to make sure my actions, so something that's been coming up all week is we don't think our way into acting, we act our way into better thinking. Right.
And you're so true. Like a lot of the time we are putting in the mental world our emotions. So that's like perhaps a type of bypassing, right? So we're choosing a different way to process our emotions, which is not exactly feeling them. So that information, that energy is going to just shift somewhere else in our body. And that's why somatic practices are really becoming on the rise for people in healing with trauma and addictions, because we are learning to actually become more in tune with our body and the messages that we're receiving, and then hopefully learning how to process them in a healthy way.
So someone that's further along in his recovery than I am told me a while back, I believe that most people mistake their mental health with their emotional health.
Yeah.
And so that made me question how many people are actually on medications for to help support mental health.
Yeah.
That's actually suppressing their emotional health, and that's why the problem keeps coming up, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not learning. I think now emotional regulation's being taught a lot more to clinicians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know me personally, maybe I'm just the lucky one person that's always had, every doctor I've seen has been like, you need meditation and exercise and lay off coffee and alcohol, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They've never given me any pills for anything.
Right.
So I'm like, but me with my coping mechanisms, I want a quick fix.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all this work because I'm doing all this work in the trades, right?
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of tradesmen as well, things are so transactional that rather than expressing our emotional needs, it's like, I work hard, I pay the bills, I come home, I'm exhausted, this is what I expect.
Yeah. We don't always get the opportunity to sit down because of the demand in the world and think about, okay, what am I processing in my emotional world? And that is really, I believe, what's being taught through emotional regulation. So a lot of people come to it, you've tried lots of different types of therapy, talk therapy, never felt like it was doing anything, and that's because we haven't been given the language of emotional regulation. So that is definitely huge in awareness post treatment, is that a lot of people are just going to be getting back in tune with our body and learning how to listen to the messages, that's going to be what creates those inner resources to help us walk the path and successfully navigate any of those triggers that are going to come up. You mentioned having a level of capacity. So within the length of recovery that you've been in, you've navigated challenges already, you've set yourself up, you have opportunities, you're in a place where now you can use emotional intelligence to say, oh yeah, relapse doesn't make sense because then all these things are going to fall out of place. And so what you've created is kind of like a meta-analysis for your life, where there's going to be people at different levels of capacity where they don't have that insight, they don't have that connection to their body yet, and that's really the key. So it's kind of a growth, maybe different tier levels of growth we find ourselves post-recovery, and that's the first step to gaining a larger capacity in our life, which is really led with the emotional world, which I can't see has ever really been taught to the mass public until now.
Yeah, fair. And I do know that in the past I've been able to quit drinking and everything for a maximum of 9 months, and that's without any kind of support groups. The thing I love about the support groups is that we open up, we get vulnerable, and we have conversations, and then we meet other people. Because I can't just try practicing all this emotional regulation stuff with the people that created the emotional unsafety, right? Because if I were to go to some of the people from my childhood and say, hey, I feel overwhelmed when you talk to me like this, and I feel very disrespected. I need you to speak to me with a little more kindness and focus on the behavior, not the person.
Yes.
That's
100%.
gonna get me yelled at and screamed at. That's just what's gonna happen.
Right?
So I can't practice these things with the same people that helped me design. I designed the coping mechanism. That was my interpretation of the world. But going back to the people that I learned these mechanisms from, that's just going to create more issues. So when I go to support groups, I meet people that are also learning accountability and how to speak to each other respectfully. And then we talk to each other and we learn how to speak this language. And now I'm finding myself in completely different rooms than I've ever been in, talking to people that have already had these skills. And it's like a normal language to them. And to me, I feel like I'm speaking, it's like I'm in a new country speaking a different language, but everybody understands me. And I'm like, oh, wow. But they don't just understand me, but they reward that. So it's like I'm putting myself in higher caliber rooms because of being in these different support rooms. And those support rooms, I believe, are really high caliber rooms as well. But they have people of every different stage of growth. So it's really cool because then I get to see some of my old behaviors come walking into the room. And then I remember going through that stuff. And then I get to be like, hey, man, I totally get where you're coming from. But what if you tried this approach?
It's so true. And that's where mentorship and AA and recovery support groups is super important, because we can be reflecting to each other this learned behavior. But I love what you just touched on, which was the idea of safety, which is really at the bottom of basis of all our behaviors is, do I feel safe or not? Biologically, we have a mechanism within us called neuroception, and it's a part of the amygdala that is constantly scanning our environment for cues of safety. And so whatever we're experiencing, our mind decides, oh, this is unsafe because I have this in my filing cabinet of memories. I have a memory of where it wasn't unsafe. So based on that, this is how I'm going to act, right? So if you've grown up, for example, in a home where there's lots of criticism, and antagonization from parents, you might feel unsafe in your home of origin, and then have grown up with messages of criticism equals not safe. And then what your body did in that moment was it learned a behavior. So that might have been an avoidance of type, that might have been a shutdown, that might have been a flight response. And so that's the learning that your body carries forward, and is how you're going to handle a lot of those experiences most likely in the future. So A lot of it in recovery, to unlearn these things, we have to really slow down and spend time with those experiences, because what we're trying to do is learn how to respond with our own compassion being one of our most important inner resources in recovery, to have compassion for ourselves for this old learned behavior, and then to, we kind of become our own coach with this, where then we learn how to walk ourselves through and have a new behavior. So we're going to choose a different response instead of reacting. Really, the goal of emotional regulation is taking someone from being emotionally reactive to being emotionally responsive, where you're actually getting a choice.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot to process.
I have been reading a lot. Things have been coming up a lot lately that have been very on theme with what I've been going through the last few weeks. I was a very avoidant person, to the point where I wouldn't let anybody in, at all.
Yeah, it was safer not to, right?
That's how I felt. But really, now that I'm getting older, it's like, I've always wanted somebody to be there, but I didn't want them to see me, because being seen meant I'm unsafe, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I would work out of town a lot, and I would always I designed my life in a way to keep everybody out.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what, I'm getting to be almost 40. It's like, I want to have real relationships. Coming back to Williams Lake after having some time in recovery was the best move for me, because a lot of my family here does not drink at all. Never have, and that's just the norm for them. So now I'm actually staying with my parents, where I don't have to focus on bills. I don't have to focus on where my next meal is coming from. I don't have to focus on. So that stuff is monumental for me working on my recovery. Plus I'm working in a recovery environment. And the reason that's monumental is because now I'm focused on recovery basically all day long. And so that's where with Rise Society, we're trying to develop living situations in Williams Lake that replicate that without people having to live with their parents, because some people don't have parents, some people don't have a healthy environment to live in if they do go to their parents. So we want to create sober living houses where people can focus on recovery. They won't have to focus on where's my next meal coming from, how am I going to pay rent. It's things are going to be provided. I've seen how it works down in Vancouver. Williams Lake has 2.5 to 3 times the problem that Vancouver has with addiction and substance use. So it's how do we help people work on their emotional health so that we can actually create a recovery friendly Williams Lake? Because personally, I think the Caribou could be a recovery and wellness capital for people to actually come to seek wellness.
I like that idea.
I don't see why we're doing so much extraction stuff here when we have so much natural beauty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And you're totally right. The idea of the recovery communities is where people who have been entrenched, and so we can often look at somebody who's lived in entrenchment, on the streets, the people who you're oh, that's the worst of the worst substance user, who have often, and this is what Gabor Mate taught us, have had a lot of early childhood trauma, so child PTSD situations where they're not gonna feel safe unless they're absolutely surrounded by people who are going through the same thing, learning the same things. And so recovery communities what Alberta is trying to do in building up recovery communities is, I think, the key. And this is also what Johan Hari said, the antidote to addiction is connection, right? So I believe in you, and I believe in this cause, because I absolutely think it's going to be the first step, and the support that people can get to having those breakthroughs. The more emotional regulation that we can achieve in our life, the more you will be able to do. And this is the emotional connection to capacity. And I think you're a good example of that. You've achieved this level in recovery of regulation where you're taking your knowledge,
working on this regulation,
working on it and turning it into that wisdom that you want to feed back into the community, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where the one person helping or one peer helping another peer is so important, because it's one thing to read something on a page written by a clinician, But it's a lot easier for somebody to understand when I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I was like this is how I did this.
Yeah.
Now, then somebody, somewhere along the way, I learned how to do it this way.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the biggest things I struggle with, though, is finding the words to describe where I'm at, because I did notice too with dating, I go from instead of saying I'm really enjoying spending time with you, it's like I love you. You know what I mean? And like, because I just don't have the words, and I'm like, well, it doesn't mean anything. It just means I love you. I tell my mom I love her. I tell the cat I love her. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like, so I need to like develop the vocabulary in a middle ground.
Yeah, totally.
Because without that vocabulary, other people are like, whoa, hey, that's too much, and it's like, well, to me, it's not. I'm trying to explain what's going on in my inner world, but I don't have the words for it. So then it's like, I got this book, Atlas to the Heart.
Oh, okay.
It's got 87 different emotions, and it defines them.
Nice.
And talks about examples where you can use these words. Right. So it's like trying to figure out what word goes into what place, and thank goodness for AI, because AI helps me with my narratives and stuff. Yeah. Right. It's because I'll say a narrative, and it's like, are you sure you want to die, or do you just want relief? And it's like, well, I want relief from this.
AI can be a really useful tool in helping us reflect back and putting into better language what it is that we're seeking. But a lot of what you're stating is stuff that's kind of information from the attachment world. So, you know, there's attachment theory, and we have different attachment types based on like how we developed attachment to our mother and family growing up. And so there's like an anxious attachment type. So, you know, anxious might mean like, you know, in a lot of situations feeling nervous, anxiety about dating, but also wanting to secure connections really quickly, because there's that fear that if I don't do this, it'll go away, and I'm gonna be the baby crying in the crib without a connection again. And so we have to learn to take our emotions and hear them, but also slow down and give space and growth to relationships. And this is the interpersonal work where you have two emotionally regulating people coming together and triggering each other on subconscious levels, where you have to also find your own language. And so like, this is also another really important point, that a lot of people who have been in addictive patterns use relationships as emotional regulation. We use all sorts of things as emotional regulation, like, you know, even AI is a form of using it for emotional regulation. I know people who use it as strictly as a counselor, which may not be bad, but again, we want to have that human connection.
I have a human counselor as well.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
there's no replacement for human connection.
Absolutely.
Because if I just use AI, then I don't have somebody holding a mirror to me. I only have AI getting my perspective of the world.
Yes.
And it also wants to keep us content.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I have to yell at it sometimes and be like, don't bullshit me. Like, there's no way every woman is the problem. It's got to be me. What am I doing wrong?
Exactly.
Because it's like, well, you're chasing after emotionally unavailable women, and that's probably true to an extent, but at the same time, you know, I still need to like focus on like, why am I doing that? And then so
there's a lot.
AI can't replace human connection.
No, exactly.
It'll never do that, and it will try to. But it is also weird that like I'm learning how to express my emotions from a robot. You know what I mean? It's like I looked at old text from somebody from 6 years ago that was on my Facebook. I was like, and I actually ran it through AI, because I was like, well, look at where I'm at now versus where I was, and everything was very, I did this, can you pick this up, can you, like, it was all mechanical, it was all logistics, and I think she might have had autism, to tell you the truth, because she'd speak in percentages and stuff. So I think she didn't need that emotional connection as much. And so that's why things were kind of working, because, you know, it's like, but really I kept a lot of stuff in during that time, because I was like, well, that doesn't matter as long as we're doing this and keeping things going transactional, blah blah blah. Everything's good.
So you're probably still learning how to emotionally regulate an aspect of your life. And so when two people are coming together, even just as friends, what then happens is there's like a co-regulation that happens, because in proximity to another nervous system, we begin to affect each other unconsciously. So this is why, like somebody could walk into a room that you've had, like a negative experience with, and you'll feel a bit different. You'll feel on guard a little. This is our unconscious mechanisms working to alert us that there's a possibility of unsafety. So again, when we're talking about relationships and coming together, we have to remember that this type of resonance is happening between us with people. And so the best solution that I've found to this is the tool of curiosity. So whenever we can kind of tune into our body and feel this shift, to be like just curious about it and create an inner dialogue with it, and try to ask it like, where did you come from, or what is it that you need in this moment? Because again, often even between two people, there's differing ideas of needs and basic needs between you that are still getting sorted out. And then based on emotional regulation, it'll tell us how well you're gonna like communicate those things to each other. So it is quite complex, and I don't think we've ever thought of our emotional world this deep as we are now in society. So
yeah, I mean, in early recovery, one of my core emotional needs, and I think this is important for anybody in recovery or early recovery, is consistency. And consistency doesn't mean talking every single day and being with that person every single day, morning till night.
No.
It just means like having people that have predictable patterns in your life, because it, like you worked down in Vancouver for a while, like you've probably seen a lot of people pass, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually when somebody's in early recovery and the pattern changes, next thing you know, you're hearing that they died. So for me, having predictable people in my life is very important, because when a pattern does shift with somebody that I care about, my mind right away goes to, I hope they're okay, and then it starts to worry. And because there was a long stream of this person has a year clean time, this person has a year sober, whatever, and then they go out for a weekend and they never come back.
Yeah, totally. And this again goes back to why support groups are, as that co-regulation to support each other going through the same issue, is so important to have that to reach out to when we're feeling dysregulated and we aren't sure what to do. And then of course, when you haven't used substances for a long time, and with fentanyl being just toxic throughout all the drug like sources, that there is a chance, if somebody hasn't used for a while, you do that one hit that was your tolerance before, and then you've overdosed. So that's the real danger in early recovery, and why it's so important to like just be hitting up those meetings, trying to have a weekly connection with somebody who you can co-regulate, who understands your background and helps you feel safe. Those are going to be the things that help you get to that 1 year, and hopefully by then you've got a good foundation.
I mean, even 1 year is kind of like they say the first 5 years is early recovery.
It's so true.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I call it early recovery, because I'm still in early recovery. But the first 5 years apparently are a lot, because right now, I feel like I'm learning stuff that a lot of 18-year-old boys learned. You know what I mean? That just were present in regulating and learning how to regulate their emotions, or learned healthy emotional regulation at home. And then as they went through stuff, it hurt, but they got through it and they moved forward. Whereas I was so avoidant that somebody says something, somebody would point out a behavioral problem, and I would take it as a personal attack. And so learning to separate the behavior from the person is really big too, especially when it's somebody else. So one of the things with the support groups is we learn not to judge other people, and by doing that we actually learn how to not judge ourselves as much. Because if I'm judging everybody else, you better believe I'm judging me way harder.
10 times harder. The inner critic is always the worst, right?
So it's like when I saw people come back to meetings all the time, I'd be like, oh yeah, good for you, that's awesome, man, you're an inspiration. Then when I went out and I had to come back, it was like I just it was hard. It was really hard. So those people that come back a lot, they are inspirations, really. But it's learning to accept that me coming back also inspires people.
Well, and this is where getting the tools under your belt to help with regulation is really important. You know, meditation is one form, yoga is a form of nervous system regulation, breath work, there's tapping and emotional freedom techniques, which I practice. There's, you know, other somatic practices that are just newly being kind of discovered and used in the counseling world to help us get more in tune with what's being activated in our body and how can we create calm through these tools to help us kind of get back to our window of tolerance and our window of joy, so that the next time this trigger happens, we're hopefully going to have this past experience of navigating it differently, and we can choose differently and learn.
So with that, like a lot lately, I've been getting a lump in my throat, right? And like the other night, it was like the size of a football, and I couldn't even, when I'd fall asleep, I couldn't even breathe through it. Right now, the lump's kind of here, but I've been learning to just pay attention to the feeling where it is, breathe into it. Don't try to analyze where it's coming from, what caused it, what it's doing, but just breathe and notice it, and then I can feel it actually move into my stomach, and it just kind of spreads. And it's like, that's emotional regulation in practice, right? Like that's literally like, because like this is a lot of stuff to be talking about, so it's not like I'm talking about this like I'm trying to do it intellectually, but I am feeling a lot because I am going through a lot of emotions. So like I am excited to be having this conversation. I'm nervous. I feel vulnerable.
I'm nervous too.
If I'm getting, right?
I get nervous talking.
It's like putting this online. It's like, who knows what's going to happen in the comments. Like, am I ready for that? But then I tell myself, it doesn't matter. Because there's somebody that might watch this that's going to get a lot out of it, and it could save that person's life.
100%. And the tool that you were describing with just feeling and accepting is actually a thing called acceptance and compassion therapy, where it's a type of somatic sensing. So you're closing your eyes and you're feeling into that lump in your throat, and you would just create a dialogue with it to say, I accept that you're here, and I want to thank you for showing up to show me where this healing needs to happen. And you just kind of work through the feeling, and at times it can move throughout the body. Or
so that's a little wordy for me. What I do is I tell it, I'm going to survive this, and I'm going to grow from
it. It can be
this.
Real simple, exactly.
Right,
and that's a good mantra.
There is like, because it's like this pain is for growth. Because when we hurt ourselves, like we get a signal of pain. If you break your leg, you get a signal of pain to your brain to say this is where you need to pay attention to.
Exactly.
Right? So that pain, when I feel it, if I'm not paying attention to it, then I'm ignoring it with drugs, alcohol, whatever. That's just going to create a bigger and bigger problem. If I walk around on that broken leg for a long time, I'm going to have a bigger and bigger problem. The book, what is it? I think it's called Winning with People. He talks about if someone has a sliver and it festers and it pusses and you touch that sliver by accident, they say, you hurt me. Well, it wasn't me that hurt them. It was them not taking care of the wound.
Exactly.
Right? And we do that with our emotions all the time. It's like, we're just like, somebody says something to me and it's like, ouch, that hurt. Because I didn't actually deal with the wound, because I would rather avoid everybody and protect that wound and keep it safe rather than actually tend to it.
Right.
And then people can say something about it and it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm glad I fixed that.
Exactly. What you do when we don't address things right away is we create a strategy to dealing with the pain that is the kind of maladaptive form of dealing with the pain, right? So when we're in addiction, we're possibly dealing with this underlying pain, but we've created a conditioned response to how we deal with the pain, which has been our substance use. And then that becomes the only way we know how to deal with the pain until we can unlearn it.
And when you're as avoidant as I was, I would just pre-reject myself for most things. I think a lot of people reject themselves, but I would do it, I was extreme with it, right? Whereas like somebody's trying to come into my world and I'd just come up with all these reasons why, and then I started to disguise it as rejecting them, right? it's like, oh no, she's not good enough because blah 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 blah. But really, I already pre-rejected myself.
Yes.
Now I'm starting to go, hey, you know what? Like, I do have a lot of things to offer.
Yeah.
But I really do have to learn how to describe what's going on in my inner world, so that other people around me, because I thought emotional availability was like having expressive emotions, which it might be a part of it, but putting a grumpy face on doesn't really explain to the person nearby why you have a grumpy face, right?
Exactly.
So,
and emotional availability, again, what we're talking about is having capacity. So the more we can be in touch with our emotional state and find the words, oh, I'm grumpy today, okay, as long as you can recognize it, then you can still walk in the world. But if we're not recognizing it and putting a name on it, then that's potentially going to be a barrier. It's going to hold us back from getting back into the work, field, or getting, having your children back in your home, or the things that your goals are in recovery. So dealing with emotional regulation is going to help somebody build that capacity in life. So super important tool, and I'm thankful that you wanted to talk about it today.